it's a debate that we've had and we have still having in this country is why did de Klerk make that speech of February 1990 which unlocked this whole process, the unbanning of the ANC and the release of Mandela. I think there's no single answer. I mean, I've had conversations with him about this, with de Klerk about this, and it's clear also that there isn't one answer. Partly, South Africa was in trouble in terms of violence inside, internal uprisings, but also in terms of the economy. The economy was in real bad trouble. It was virtually bankrupt by the late 80s. The internal resistance of the UDF and the trade unions made it clear that they cannot be controlled. You could not put 5 million people in jail. You could not keep them separate anymore. They were unstoppable, and they were making the country ungovernable. I've always said, and I still say it now in stuff I write, that the internal resistance, the UDF and COSATU, the Trade Union Federation, should get more credit for forcing the apartheid government to the negotiating table than the African National Congress in exile or Mkhonto Wesizwe, their military wing. The real heroes were the UDF and COSATU, the trade unionists. And they also suffered more in terms of torture and detention. When you lived in exile, you lived in exile. So that was the one, it was becoming very hard. So there was pressure from business to say, well, let's change something so it would be better to make business, to do business in the society. That pressure also came from Afrikaner business, and government and Afrikaans business were always very close together. Because the Afrikaners had now, from the 1960s, 70s on, become members of the middle class. They become quite prosperous. By the 80s, they were really established as in the economy, where they weren't before. They were the poor white cousins in the country. So Afrikaner nationalism had a socialist background. And as they post-1948, when they took over the white government and took over the civil service, and they had a massive program of helping, pulling themselves up on their bootstraps, through the Afrikaner Broederbond and all kinds of organizations. A very smart model of empowering an ethnic group, whatever their motivations, but it really worked. So by the 60s, 70s especially, they were now middle-class people, and they were enjoying the good life. And now this newfound good life was being threatened. So there was that pressure. So you throw all these things together, and that creates a certain atmosphere. Now you throw in two other things. The one is that President P.W. Botha has a stroke, and he's incapacitated. So suddenly, the known strong leader is gone, and they choose another guy, and what does he do? It can't be more business as usual. So there was the scene was set for de Klerk to do something, and the pressure on him was immense. And the final piece of the puzzle was the fall of the Berlin Wall. Initially, Afrikaner nationalism used the communist threat as a reason why apartheid was important. Because the liberation movement, the African National Congress and the Communist Party were communists and terrorists, and they would impose a communist Marxist system, and South Africa would become a satellite of Moscow. And a lot of otherwise sober, decent people fell for this argument, fueled by the intelligence services and embroidered upon by especially the military. You know, we call it the rooi gevaar, the red danger. And people genuinely feared it. I mean, young, decent young white men went and died in Angola and elsewhere because they thought they were fighting the godless communists. But when international communism started disintegrating in 88, 89, and the Berlin Wall fell, no more argument like that. Now you throw all this in this pot, and a bit of guts, a bit of good decision making from de Klerk, and that's what happened on the 2nd of February 1990. I don't think if he knew what that would trigger, how that would develop, that he would have done quite so much. He would have held back a little bit. But the minute Nelson Mandela walked from jail, there was no stopping the process. It unleashed a kind of a gentle but assertive people's power in the country, and a massive expectation all over the world of a settlement. Because, you know, when the National Party and their security forces realized in mid-late 80s that they're not going to win this war, maybe a deal should be done. Exactly at the same time, the ANC realized that they can't win this war, and they can wait until this country is completely destroyed, or they can make a deal. I had those conversations with ANC people at that time, 85, 86, in Lusaka and elsewhere. So it all just conspired and got together in February 1990, and then went out of control for de Klerk. He didn't